Thank you, Megan and Ryan. So hello and welcome to today's webinar, Cybersecurity Best Practices. Thank you for joining us. I am Mary Waldron. I'm the Executive Director of the Old Colony Planning Council. For those not familiar with OCPC, we are a regional planning agency for most of Plymouth County and a few neighboring towns in both Norfolk and Bristol County. We assist 17 communities in planning for present and future needs, utilizing our local knowledge, technical expertise, and regional collaboration. To learn more about us, visit our website, www.oldcolonyplanning.org. Today's presentation will include topics of digital safety, software updates, and best digital practices. It's apropos for today because we've all kind of dealt with some latest things with Microsoft issues and whole bunch of things that have hit the nation, and we just never know what from day to day what our next challenge will be. But we are lucky, we are very lucky to have not only as our technology providers, IT technology consultants, but they are known throughout the region. Right Technology delivers comprehensive and reliable technology services to support business needs across Massachusetts and Rhode Island. They specialize in cybersecurity, manage IT services, data backup and recovery, and cloud services. Right Technology Group prides itself on outstanding customer service, and their team is committed to providing clients and the support and services they need to feel confident in their IT security. This webinar will be recorded and made available after it has been processed and on our YouTube channel and our website. A link will be sent directly to all of you who are registered, and the slides will be shared as well. With all that long introduction, I will hand this over for today's presentation to Ryan Sarvia. He's a senior systems engineer at Right Technology, and welcome today, Ryan.
Well, thank you very much, Mary. Like Mary said, my name is Ryan Sarvia. I'm a senior system engineer with Right Technology, as well as a team lead. I do a lot of the trainings like the one we're going to do today. Today's is just a very brief overview of some general cybersecurity. We do have a relatively small group today, but normally I ask that we just hold on to any questions until the end of the presentation. If you have a pen and paper handy, if you're on your computer, just open up Word or Notepad and jot down those questions so you don't forget. That way we can get through all the information relatively quickly, and then we can open it up so that there's plenty of time to answer any and all questions. So normally there's a couple of items I do like to include that technically fall under the cybersecurity umbrella, but really wouldn't be part of this presentation. It's just good information to have. The first thing is Right Technology and most IT professionals will let you know that you really should be following a clean desk policy. Now, what does that mean? Basically, it just means that if you have any what's known as private identifiable information, PII, that should not be readily available to anyone just walking by your desk, or say you leave to go to lunch, end your day. No one should be able to see that private information, whether it be on your computer screen or just kind of on the desk. If you're not in front of your computer, we always recommend hitting Control-Alt-Delete, just like this. You can hit that Enter key. It will lock your screen. And that way no one can kind of shoulder surf you and see what you're working on. If you have folders that have that private identifiable information, make sure they're locked in your desk or a filing cabinet. And just for clarification, when we talk about PII, it's anything to do with medical, banking, even something as simple as someone's name and their current address is considered PII. So you want to make sure that you're always protecting that information. The other item I always like to bring up is removable media. And what I mean when I say removable media is a flash drive, maybe like a passport, USB attachment that you have. Most companies recommend not using them. There are certain situations where you can use them if you have general files, something that if you lose the USB, which we all do all the time, that it's not that big of a deal. If your company doesn't allow for it, then great, you continue to not use it. If you do allow for it, we always say make sure that those flash drives are encrypted. I lose a flash drive at least once a month. I'm sure everyone here does the same. So we want to make sure that that data, even if it seems innocuous, is protected. So with that, we can just sort of jump right in. The cybersecurity training today is just a brief overview on current technology and how to defend yourself from falling victim to hackers. So we have a few objectives today. Number one, we want to detail some current means that bad actors use to scam or hack users. We're going to list some common tools that hackers will use to try to trick you into giving up information, and some best practices for keeping yourself and your company safe. Hackers use a variety of avenues to steal personal information. We call these attack vectors. This is not a fully comprehensive list, but these are really the most important things to continuously think about. The first being text phishing through a smartphone. Usually comes through as a general text on your device. Some social media exploits, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Phishing phone calls, which tend to be more prevalent at home versus in the office, but you do still get them from time to time in the office, so it's important to look out for them. Applications for your smartphone, whether they be in the App Store, the Play Store, or just on the web. You want to be very careful about what you're downloading and where you're downloading it from. Compromised websites. This is one of those things that you would see where it becomes a full screen pop-up, sort of like my PowerPoint, and I'll show an example of it later on. And then the last one, the big one, phishing emails. This is the one that keeps us up at night. This is the one we want to be on guard for. Basically I believe it's 91% of every data breach starts with a phishing email. It's definitely the thing hackers use most often to trick people. It's very easy to do. Office 365, which is the largest email provider on the planet, is the single most hacked application on the planet. Therefore, anyone who uses an Office 365 account, which in business is a good chunk of businesses, has the potential to be infected, taken over, and sending out those spammy emails. So I'll show examples of what to look for, but they're definitely the thing we want to key on the most. So we'll start first with phishing phone calls. Like I said, this is more often at home than in an office, but it does happen from time to time. At home, if you receive a call from your National Grid, your electrical company, we're turning off your power at noon. We're going to send a sheriff out there because you haven't paid the IRS. Someone from Microsoft is calling you. A recurring theme throughout this presentation is that Microsoft never reaches out to you proactively. I don't care if it's by the phone, by text message, on a pop-up on your computer. They have no way of doing this. It is always 100% fake. Microsoft will never reach out to you first. Your IT professional will get notifications depending on what you have as part of your company set up. But that for them to reach out to the client or an individual, whether it's a personal or work device, it's never going to happen. Fake charity appeals, lottery scams. I'll skip family members in peril for a second. Bank fraud calls, insurance, healthcare, and debt scams. Website password requests, fake customer requests. If ever you receive one of these proactively, whether it be from your bank, your insurer, someone who might be a potential customer, someone asking you to reset your password, what we always suggest doing is say, I never do this over the phone with the person you're on the phone with. Hang up. Now go to that bank, go to that insurance, go to that healthcare place, go to that website directly, sign in as yourself. If there's a problem, it will pop up immediately. Or find their number from their website and call them yourself. We never want to just trust a proactive phone call, email, text message, because it's just too easy to fake this sort of stuff. Now, I skipped over family members in peril. Excuse me. I skipped over family members in peril because there's always a story I tell during these presentations that it's a bit personal, but it's happened to me. A few years ago, my now wife and I were on vacation. Whether this bad actor knew that or not, we don't know. But while we were on vacation, this bad actor called my great aunt, who at the time was early 90s, and said, "Hey, this is Ryan. I've been arrested. I need you to wire me some money to get out." Now, luckily, my great aunt Lorraine called someone else in my family who said, "Nope, he's on the beach. They're drinking. They're having a good time. They're dancing. They're loving it. They're great. Everybody's okay." But in a lot of these situations, people are very trusting, whether it's ourselves or a family member. We all know someone who would hear that phone call and want to help. Unfortunately, because of the world we live in, we cannot just trust that person is who we think it is. Always tell the people in your family, to check in with you or check in with someone else. Don't just proactively get those gift cards or send that wired money. Don't just send money out. It's pretty much always fake. So we want to be very, very careful of that. And this is good information to have, obviously, for the family as well. This stuff is as important in the office as it is in your personal life. So we just want to make sure we're using this everywhere. Phishing through text messages. This is becoming more popular by the day. We all sign up for these text message alerts, whether it be our Amazon account, our FedEx account, our Apple ID, our PayPal, our bank. Whenever there's an update on a package or something that looks strange, we want to get those text message alerts. Well, unfortunately, hackers know that too. If you ever notice when you receive one of these messages, they're usually from a 5-digit random number, maybe 55555. These are very, very easy to clone, to duplicate, and to send out to, say, 10,000 email addresses or phone numbers in the hopes that you click the link. So even if you've signed up for these alerts on your text message, whether it be your bank, whether it be Amazon, FedEx, it's sort of the same thing with the phone situation. We don't want to trust that text message itself. Close the text message, sign into that site directly, and it will show you those updates for you. Those links a lot of times will install software that you don't even realize is being installed on the phone. And now your phone's been taken over. They have your contacts, they have your information, and you might not even know it. Compromised websites. This was very, very big 10 years ago. It still happens now. We've all seen them. They sort of look like this contact support screen. It usually says Microsoft has detected 50 viruses, or the FBI has been watching what you're doing online. We're going to come out and get you. These are always fake. A little trick that a lot of people don't know is that if you have one of these full screens, sort of like this PowerPoint presentation, if you hit the Windows key on your keyboard, it actually exits from it. So now you can close out a Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, whatever web browser you're using. We do still recommend that if you get one of these, you talk to your IT professional, because sometimes something's been installed on your computer that's making these pop-ups happen. So we want to check your web browser and make sure that nothing's been installed without you realizing it. And again, like we talked about earlier, Microsoft never initiates that support contact. If it says Microsoft can detect some things or we're here for you, it's always fake. So phishing emails, the big one. 91% of every data breach, it happens right here. This is where most everything happens. And a lot of times it doesn't matter what antivirus you have or what spam filtering service you have on your emails. It's always up to the individual user to do the right thing in every situation. Now, we know that's not going to happen in every situation. We're all busy. We all have a million things going on. You may just open an email and follow a link, and then you realize at that point something's not right here. Every time you follow one of those links, you need to let your IT person know right away. The reason being, and a quick little story I can tell you is, and this is just an example of something that happens every single day, sort of an extreme one, but it's a good one to know. A few years ago in California, there was a hospital where a member of the administrative staff opened an email from someone they worked with at another hospital every single day. They received emails from them back and forth for however long they both worked there. They opened the email, and then when the link opened in the email, nothing appeared to happen. At that point, the person realized, oh, this might be fake. They called over. The person confirmed, yeah, that's not for me. You can go ahead and delete it. And they deleted it. Unfortunately, they didn't let their IT team know. What that person didn't know is that by clicking that link, it actually installed a backdoor on that person's computer. The hacker was able to get into that person's computer and sit on that computer for about a year and a half. After about a year and a half, they waited for a nice long holiday weekend where there would be a skeleton crew, and they struck the network. Every computer that was touching that computer was instantly encrypted, and every computer encrypted, then encrypted every computer connected to the encrypted computers, which basically means the whole hospital shut down. Couldn't access medical records, they couldn't access patient files. Lives are now currently on the line. What they tried to do was what IT teams will do in these sort of situations is they try to pull from backups. Now, backups do not go back a year and a half. Backups usually go 2 weeks, a month, depending on your service. You might have off-site backups. Their oldest backups were not old enough. So anytime they would recover data, instantly they would become encrypted again. They had no choice but to pay millions of dollars in Bitcoin to unlock the files. Now, luckily, their hacker gave them the code to unlock those files. The problem is now, especially with the situations with Russia, with China, they're just looking to cause damage. You pay them, they don't give you a code. Your company's shut down. Most small businesses do not recover from these kinds of shutdowns. It is extremely important that in the event you have opened an email, and even if you don't think anything's happened, you need to have an IT professional look at your computer. If you do not have backups, you need to invest in strong backups, an actual backupping program. So these are the top 8 things we look for when it comes to phishing emails. Again, not a comprehensive list, sort of like the attack vectors, but the most important things you want to look out for. Number 1, legit companies don't request your sensitive information via email. This is always true and should be true of every company talking to somebody. We never, ever want to send PII, private identifiable information, through regular email. It is against the law to do so. You cannot send it through that regular email. Both state and federal law require you to send it either encrypted, through a fax line, or over the telephone. So make sure that you're not sending or receiving any of that private information. Number 2, legit companies usually call you by your name. This is almost always true, but it's not always true, but a lot of times companies will try to personalize those emails for you. So if it says "to whom it may concern," "dear sir or madam," "hello," a lot of times that is a fake email. You can go ahead and delete. Number 3, legit companies have domain emails. I'll show an example of what that means in a second, but basically a domain email is the beginning of your email followed by the domain of your company. So that means everything after the @ symbol. So for me, I'm rsarvia@wtgtech.com. My domain email is @wtgtech.com. If I send you an email from a Yahoo, it's going to be fake. In the business world, we're not using Gmails, we're not using Yahoos unless there's a specific reason. It's going to come from our domain. Legit companies know how to spell. I'm awful at this. I have software on my Outlook. I can't spell to save my life. I wouldn't catch a spelling error, but if you are someone who's a lot smarter than myself, who can see those errors, if you see them, it's probably fake. Number 5, legit companies don't force you to their website. Usually, if they're giving you information, the email contains the information. Unless it's sensitive and they're sending you an encrypted message, they're not just going to send you an email that says, "Hey, click this link." That's basically always fake. 6, legit companies don't send unsolicited attachments. This should also be true of us as well as any outside company. It's pretty rare that we're sending out random documentation to people or receiving pre-documentations in most cases. So if you've worked with someone for the last 15 years and they've sent you an Excel sheet every Wednesday for the last 10 years, but today they sent you a Word document, doesn't matter if you know them. You have to assume it's fake. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world now. Call them. Don't trust their email, even the signature in the email. Call them on the phone. "Hey, I got this Word. I was expecting Excel. Is it real? Yes, no." You go from there. Number 7, legit companies' links match legitimate URLs. Few examples coming up on this as well, but basically all that means is if Google sends you an email, it's going to link to google.com. It's not going to link to a bunch of random characters /Google/ whatever. It's google.com. And lastly, ACH change request forms. If ever you receive an ACH, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's banking directly, it's banking a routing number and the account number. If ever you're receiving that email, automatically delete it. It's fake 100% of the time. If someone calls you saying you'll save 20% if you give us the new ACH, we've changed, payment methods on our side, we'll give you a 20% break if you give it to us over the phone. It is fake. Never give this information proactively at any point to anyone. You should always be the one initiating the call to add this. And again, don't email this either. That is very much private identifiable information. And in fact, I wouldn't even send this encrypted. That is information that should be on the phone with a trusted source only. All right, so here we have a couple of tech support scams. This will show an example of it not coming from the person it's claiming to be, as well as we can take a look at the domain email address. So we have 2 examples here. On the left, we have PayPal. On the right, we have Microsoft. These are sort of usually vaguely threatening in nature. We emailed you a little while ago asking for your help resolving an issue. You didn't reach out to us. You've been locked. All right, but that sounds a little bit like they've locked my account, a little threatening. Before we do anything, we want to take a look at the email itself. Now, the email looks to be pretty legitimate, but let's take a look at the sender. The sender has been circled up here at the top left. We've actually broken the sender into 2 parts here. The sender is a nickname and a domain email address. So everything before this less than symbol is the nickname. So this says service@international.paypal.com. This looks very, very legitimate. Unfortunately, nicknames can be made anything. That could be Santa Claus, that could be Bill Belichick. You can never trust a nickname. At any time, you can change it. Anybody can. It's pretty easy to do. What you really want to look at is the domain email address, which is this bit right here after that less than symbol. This is a little bit harder to spoof. So we want to take a look at the sender. It says service.epay with an I, pal@outlook.com. Now, even I caught that spelling error. There's an I in PayPal, and it's coming from outlook.com. If PayPal's sending me an email, A, it's going to be spelled right. And B, it's going to come from paypal.com, not outlook.com. This example on the right, claiming to be from Microsoft, very scary looking, unusual sign activity. Someone from another country is logged in as you. Right away, we know Microsoft never reaches out to you first. We can tell it's fake. But if we've forgotten or we didn't know that today, we look at this email and it looks pretty scary. Before we click that review recent activity, we want to take a look at the sender. The nickname, Microsoft team, looks pretty real. But again, nicknames can be anything. We have to ignore that. The real email is no reply, mstream2@outlook.com. The front end, sometimes there's automated messages from companies that may have something sort of like that, but the antenna should go up right away that we shouldn't trust this either way. And it's coming from Outlook, not Microsoft. So in these two examples, this is if you've received an email and you followed the link. So the first thing I want to say, if you've clicked that and you followed the link, even if you don't do anything here, you have to let your IT team know that you clicked a link. Just because it popped this open, it may have done other things too. It may have installed a backdoor. It may have installed, encryption programs. You need to let somebody know, even if you don't put anything in here. Both of these are what we call a password harvester. Basically, what's going to happen is if you put your email and your password in here, that hacker is going to try that email and that password on the top websites across the internet. Most people tend to use only 1 to 3 passwords for every account. IT will tell you you need to have unique passwords for every website. This is not feasible. Obviously, no one can remember 1,000 passwords unless you're writing them down, which is also a big no-no. We have to live in reality. The reality is most people will have 1 to 3 passwords for everything. So if at any point you give away that email and that password, you need to change it everywhere. They're going to try it everywhere. And then even if they can't get in, what they're going to do is they're going to sell your information on the dark web. They'll bundle it with 1,000 other people who gave away their emails and their passwords, and tens of thousands of hackers will buy your information for pennies on the dollar and also try to get into your accounts. So you need to update it everywhere. If you get to one of these sites where it's asking you to put in your email, your password, the first thing we want to do is check the URL. Does our URL match the website that it's supposed to be? In this case, the URL is file:// bunch of junk. This is not Google. If we were at Google, it would say google.com. Same thing in this Adobe example. It's looking for an email and a password. Before we put in that email and that password, check the URL. Again, it's not adobe.com. File:// C junk. This goes for anything that pops up, whether it be an Office 365 pop-up, a news website pop-up, it doesn't matter. If you did not initiate going to the website yourself, you need to confirm it's the correct website. Very, very easy to fake this stuff. In this example, it's a Word document that's been sent to a user who opened that document. So again, because they've opened the document, you need to let somebody know so we can check your computer. But Microsoft sort of doesn't trust us as users, which in some cases is really good. So by default, it disables macros, it disables certain functions, and it makes sure before you run them that you know what you're opening. So in this example, you've opened the Word document, it's turned off macros, and it gives you the warning. I've turned this off. Are you sure you want to open it? So if, Tim from down the hall sent you a Word document with macros on it, and they've never done that before, you need to talk to them. Go down to their office. If it's an external company, call that office, confirm it is real. If you enable that content, anything can happen to your computer. For these two examples, it's sort of a two-parter. One on the left is for Facebook Instant Messenger. The one on the right is a fake YouTube. So for the example on the right, someone's clicked a bad link, whether they're just surfing the web and they click an ad or they open something in an email. But we'll start first with the left one here. I think we all know that if we receive a instant message on Facebook, Instagram, I don't know, Snapchat, all the social medias, if you receive a message and it has an attachment, even if it's from someone we know not to open it. Don't open it. If you think it might be real because someone went on vacation and you think they might be sending some photos, something like that, just give them a quick call, shoot them a quick text, make sure it's real. Usually if it's someone we know, they say, hey, it's Ryan, just got back from my vacation, check out these photos. They're not just going to send you random attachments. For the one on the right, we've opened a bad link somehow. So again, you got to let that IT person know so they can scan your computer. But when you get it, we want to look at the URL here. Does that say YouTube? No, junk, random junk. A lot of times when you get one of these pages, you get this pop-up. I know it's a real pain, but if you do get a pop-up on your computer, you have to know what that pop-up means. If you don't know what that pop-up means, let somebody know and they can take a look for you. People have a tendency to hit the X button, hit the cancel button. In some cases, they hit an ad extension, or yes, you don't want to do that unless you know what it is you're looking at. Because really anything can happen from one of these. Even if you're just clicking X to sort of get rid of it, which is what most people do in that situation, a lot of times you might have something downloaded to your toolbar that's actually causing these pop-ups and you don't even know. So if we take a look at your Google Chrome, we take a look at your Mozilla, your Edge, and we'll be able to determine pretty quickly if there's some junk, some spyware, some adware that's been installed on your web browser. For this example, it's a phishing attack that is from LinkedIn. There's sort of two attack vectors here going on. The one on the left here is from LinkedIn directly. The one on the bottom here is from email. In both cases, if you click the link involved, you may get a sheet like this, a website like this, I should say, which I can explain in a second. But let's start first with LinkedIn itself. So in this example, Wells Fargo has sent me a private message saying that my private security key is no longer valid and expired. Again, sort of vaguely threatening in nature. My account's been locked unless I do this thing right away. Before we click that link, we want to look at the link. This is supposed to be Wells Fargo, right? Is this URL Wells Fargo? No, cabinetenigma.com/junk. If you do click the link, you might be brought to a page like this. But before we get to that, sometimes they don't go directly through the website. They might send you an email. So right away, you may notice that the website looks a little funky, or excuse me, the email looks a little funky. You see the reply, they're not interested at the bottom. It looks a little strange. So before we follow that link, we want to scan it for spelling errors. We want to take a look at the email itself to see if this might be real. And if we think it might be real, instead of following that link, we just go to LinkedIn ourselves, or excuse me, Wells Fargo ourselves, and sign in. What we know to look out for now, the URL, that's not Wells Fargo. This is fake. The other thing we can look for is the email. Wells Fargo, in-mail, hit reply at linkedin.com. So the nickname's right, Wells Fargo, but the email, in-mail, hit reply at linkedin.com. Well, if Wells Fargo is sending me that email, it's going to come from Wells Fargo, not LinkedIn. If you click the link in either of these, same thing as the previous examples, you've got to let your IT person know anything could be installed, but you may get a website like this. I think we're all going to realize that this is fake. They're never really this obvious. It's sort of an extreme example, but if it brings you to a web page that's asking for a username, your social security number, your account numbers, driver's, mother's maiden name, any of that stuff, it's 99 times out of 1,000 that it's fake. So just check your URL, cabinetenigma.com/Wells Fargo. It's fake. We can close out. CEO fraud scams. These are very, very popular. Like I said, Office 365 is the single largest email provider in the world. When someone gets hacked, and it is when, it's not if, someone will give away their password. It will happen eventually. When that happens, something people don't think about is that even though you've given up control of your email, and we can fix that relatively quickly, one of the real downsides is that hacker now has access to your address book, your company's address book. They know who everyone is in every department and their roles within the company. They now know who to hit in finance, who they should target as management, individual users. They know everything about the company. So in the event that you receive anything to do with money, especially gift cards or wired payments, whether it be from the CEO or any member of your team, you need to confirm with the member of your team by going down to their office, give them a call on their cell. Hey, I got this. Is it real? more often than not, it's not real, it's fake. So in this example, this one on the left, this is someone claiming to be a CEO. It's Jay. Hey, you at the office? Can we send out that wire today? I got to know the cutoff time for international payments. Right away, money's involved. Never going to do it over an email, ever, at any point. But just check in with the CEO and make sure that they're not looking to send out that wire. This one on the right is the one that we see most often. Someone's asking for gift cards, whether it be a member of management, the owner of the company, the CFO, the CEO, whoever. Hey, we had a great quarter. Hey, the holidays are coming up. I want to get a bunch of gift cards for people. Again, money is involved. Right away, we want to shut it down. We don't want to go down this route over email. Give them a call, confirm with them. I cannot tell you how often it is that someone will go buy a bunch of gift cards, scratch out the back, and give that number to the person either making a call or going over email. There is no reason for anyone to ever have that code on the back except for the person who's going to use it. Once they have that code, the card is instantly drained of value, you lose it, and there's no real way to recover that money. Smartphone applications. So normally we recommend to not install any apps on company cell phones unless it's been approved by your management team and then vetted by your IT team. A lot of times, especially with small businesses, they're using very specific applications that may be only available to download on a website. And when it's on a website, it's not scanned, it's not vetted, there's no safety for it. So you need to be very careful about downloading it. Even if you're getting it in the Play Store or the App Store, it's very, very easy to get fake apps hosted that will infect cell phones. People tend to think Apple devices are more secure. This is not true. And in fact, in many cases, they're actually less secure because people think they're more secure and don't do more things to protect themselves. So for here, this first example they have, Google took down 200 malicious apps in the Play Store. Just those 200 apps were downloaded 10 million separate times. And again, Apple's a little bit more tightly secured, but it's still sort of teeming with scams. Updating your smartphone's operating system. I think we're all probably guilty of this. We tend to have that update pending for 2 or 3 months. You can't do it. They're a little bit different than computers or servers, cell phones. With a computer or server, your IT team may wait weeks, months, years, depending on a server, just to make sure that those updates are actually okay to use with the programs that you use every day. Microsoft and Apple do not vet their updates with the programs that you use. So if you do download updates sometimes too soon, it will break the programs and we have to roll you back. So we might wait on those updates. That's pretty normal. Your cell phone is very different. If there's an update pending, that means that there's a security flaw, there's a problem with the code, there's an issue with the phone that needs to be patched right away. So we want to make sure we do that. Before you do that, though, you want to make sure your phone's charged. In fact, you should leave it plugged in while it's doing the update. If you don't, make sure it's at least 70%. If your phone dies during an update, you will have a brick. It'll be a nice, fancy $1,000 paperweight. Do not let your phone die while it is updating. It won't know how to roll back. It won't know how to roll forward. Your phone's going to be useless. Back up to your files. OS upgrades shouldn't affect data on smartphones, but I cannot tell you how often it is that someone has an iPhone, they update their iPhone, and half of their contacts are missing, or all of their documents are missing. If you're not backing them up to the iCloud or to a Gmail account, if you're on an Android device, there is no way to recover it. There's no way to go backwards on a cell phone. If you lose that data and it is not backed up, it is gone forever. Make sure your device is compatible with an operating system update. Your phones can't really update past what they're compatible with, so you probably won't even see this. But if you're still rocking that iPhone 4 or 5, you need to get rid of it. If it is not continuously receiving updates from whoever the manufacturer it is, it's too old to have. You cannot have that phone anymore. You need to replace it. And lastly, delete apps you're no longer using. The operating system updates tend to take up a huge amount of space on a phone. So if you're regularly just kind of cleaning your phone out, you shouldn't run out of space. So in summary, if you think you've been hacked or you hit a bad website, you have to let your IT know right away. The quicker it's reported, the quicker it can be resolved. You're not going to show us something we haven't seen 10 million times. It's always better to err on the side of, hey, Ryan, can you come take a look at this? I'm kind of unsure because the alternatives can get pretty ugly. Number two, always assume anything new or different is fake when it comes to email. It really stinks, but that is just the way of the world. If something is off about an email, you have to assume it's fake. Always, 100% of the time. I don't care if it's an internal employee, external employee, a family member, it does not matter. Call them without trusting the email, including the signature, confirm it's legitimate first. And then lastly, update your smartphone as soon as those updates are available. And you want to make sure you're only downloading approved applications, your management approved applications that have been vetted by your IT department. So with that, that's really the entirety of the basics of cybersecurity training, the things to look out for. We definitely have plenty of time to open it up for questions. I see I have a chat, so I'm just going to open this up. But if you have questions, definitely feel free to go ahead and ask them now.
Ryan, thank you. While you take a look at the chat, I placed something in there to have people ask questions, but, just to summarize again, the importance of having a good relationship with your IT consultant or your IT employee, if that's the way that your organization is run. But the conversation, the communication needs to be fluid. And I know with you being our contractors, we're constantly probably over so, but we constantly have we have a once a month meeting to talk about our IT needs, and we talk about things such as cybersecurity. But the value really that we really want to do is not only as a regional organization, but to our communities and our partners. It affects us all. When it affects one, it has very strong potential of affecting many. And, as you mentioned as well, is, be more doubtful and don't be so trusting of your emails. And, within our office alone, I know that all of our staff will most of it's fiscal, right? Did you send us that information? And
Yep.
likely the answer is no, we didn't. So thank you. This is a really great overview. I don't know if there are questions in the chat.
Let me just take a quick look here. Yeah, no, of course. And thank you for that. Yeah, it's very, very important to constantly be in contact with that team. Exactly as Mary described. That's what we are here for. So don't ever feel that there's a wrong question, a silly question. There are no silly questions. There are no wrong questions. That is literally our job. All we do is make sure that your business is secure. That is what we're here for. Actually, we may have another question here.
Megan, do you want to read it out loud?
Yeah. So one of the questions that came in is, can you speak to the security best practices with regard to photocopiers with scan functions? Do they store all scans to a hard drive?
A good question. It depends on how your copier, multifunction, or scanner is set up. So some scanners, especially newer scanners or multifunction scanners, actually don't go directly to your computer's hard drive. They'll go to the cloud. And if you are using an old multifunction printer, and what I mean when I say that is one of the large standing ones that do the faxing, the printing, the copying. If you're using a really old one that goes to the cloud and is encrypted, it's probably too old and outdated. In those cases, you definitely want to replace that machine, or don't use it to send to the cloud. You can send it by email in a lot of cases from the machine itself, or directly to your computer's hard drive. If you are sending it from the copier by email, make sure that you're using an internal email address that has multi-factor authentication. If you are sending it from a domain email, which again, in my case would be at wtgtech.com. So say I have a copier and it scans at wtgtech.com, because it's never leaving my domain, it's going from my domain to someone else in my domain. There's not really a concern about it being stolen on the way. That's totally okay. In a lot of cases, when you're scanning directly to your computer, because it's never leaving the network, that's okay too. The only concern really is if you have a really, really old multifunction and it connects to the cloud, or you have a local desk scanner that connects to the cloud and it's very old and not being updated anymore. More than likely the encryption software, the encryption keys on that cloud-based, what's known as like an FTP server, is probably out of date and could, in theory, be hit. So we just want to be a little bit careful with that. But in most cases, the way that you're sending to yourselves are fine.
What would you consider old? Like how many years?
So in technology, old is not very old. So when it comes to multifunction scanners, I would say anything more than 5 to 7 years is probably too old with cloud-based unless it's receiving regular updates. So a lot of the big names, you know, your Konica Minoltas, your Canons, a lot of those, even the older models, are regularly updated. So that would be okay. In most business situations, people aren't saving to the cloud with it. They're saving directly either to their computers or sending it by email. So it's pretty rare that you'd have to worry about your multifunction. If your multifunction is 20 years old, then you got to get rid of it. It's too old. Computers and servers are different. Servers are a 5-year cutoff. You have to replace them every 5 years. Computers, we recommend 5 years. Sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes it's a little more. If your computer is 7 years old and it's Windows 10 or 11 and it's running fine and it's gangbusters, then don't replace it. There's no reason to. But if it's 5 years old and it has a mechanical problem, whether it's a hard drive, you know, the USB port or something like that, a lot of times because it's so old, it's actually the motherboard that's dying, but pieces on the motherboard tend to die first. So you might pay, you know, $100, $150 to replace the hard drive. But really it was your motherboard. So now you're just doubling up on payments. So usually we say if it's about 5 years old and it's starting to die, there's no real way to update it, get it going from your IT team, then it should be replaced. Servers, 5-year hard cutoff. They need to be replaced. Other devices are cell phones. If it's no longer getting regular operating system updates, they need to be replaced. Usually that happens every about 5 years, maybe 7 years. And I think that covers most of the technology people have on their day-to-day. Cloud-based stuff, totally different. As long as you have multi-factor authentication, if you're using Office 365 in the cloud, that's not an on-site server. You don't have to do something crazy and replace it or anything. That's all taken care of for you in the cloud.
Ryan, just because I scanned the participation list, those that are attending, we have a combination of government and some nonprofit groups. You know, how do they get in touch with you? I mean, there's some of this early assessment. So let me at least explain from our end. When, you know, I first started in 2019, we weren't, you know, I really wasn't sure which way to go. And I know Right Technology came in and helped me do an assessment, and in fact gave us a listing, you know, where our firewall, where our server, and all these other protections that were basically lacking at that point. So, you know, where does one start again, and how do they get in touch with you? And or even some advice in terms of it's not Right Technology, which I would certainly, you know, would advocate for. But, you know,
Thank you.
where does one begin? I mean, it really is a challenge for a lot of people, because in the end, right, you're going to put out money early, but that early investment is going to protect you in the end. But that's, you know, again, there's a number of folks that are on this that could use some guidance.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you. But yeah, they can reach out to myself or Howard. I can drop our information in the chat. We do look at networks. We'll do a network scan for you, see where you're lacking, where you guys could improve. If service is something you're looking for, we can help you. We can offer some guidance. There's a lot of things that can be done. I can also drop our website in here. And I think, Mary, you summed it up perfectly. And in most cases, what tends to happen is that IT is sort of, there are things that aren't continuously updated over time. So they start to fall off and they're not effective anymore. And you know, a business may not even be aware of it. For a lot of government agencies, there are very, very stringent rules you guys have in places, and nonprofits, it's the same thing. So if you're unsure at all, even if it's not Right Technology, you need to get someone to look at your network and make sure that you are compliant with state and federal law. It's very, very easy to become non-compliant and not even know it. And there's sort of a million different, unfortunately, attack vectors and things that most people who aren't IT professionals, you wouldn't even know to look for. So let me drop in the chat here my information.
Great. And I think Megan has a question, or there might be a question in the Q&A.
Yeah, both. So Ryan, once you're ready, I will read off.
Sure.
All right. So one of our questions is, we have a nonprofit and just created a new website where people could pay annual dues, but we're using Google for our email. Should we try to get a domain? Where do we do that? Thank you.
Okay, so nonprofit just creating a new website. So let's see, we have a nonprofit. I'm just reading again. I apologize. And just created a new website where people can pay annual dues, but using Google for our email. So normally we don't recommend using Gmail with nonprofits or government agencies. Technically speaking, if you have cybersecurity insurance, if you have multi-factor authentication on there, you're fine in most cases. But again, it's a sort of case-by-case thing. We'd have to look, or someone would have to look for you to make sure that that's okay. For a lot of smaller nonprofits, that's definitely okay as long as you implement that 2FA. But we would recommend moving to Office 365 or some kind of alternative if you don't want a server on-prem, which sort of is the most companies now want to be in the cloud. But there are options. You could have servers or a VM server, which is a virtual machine on your on-prem, or you could invest in Office 365. And like Mary said, there is, with whatever it is that you're going to do, there is going to be upfront costs. That's just the way it is. Like we wouldn't sugarcoat it to you. We wouldn't lie to you. If you are very much out of date, you will pay to get up to date. That's just the way it is. Doesn't matter if you use Right Technology or any technology company. A lot of this stuff changes so rapidly that you don't even know the things that you don't have. So what you thought might only be sort of a small thing that you might need to invest in really could be a large thing. And in this case, that might be one of those situations. You might need to move from Gmail to Office 365, which may be a sizable investment. To buy a domain, there are different companies that you can buy domains from. GoDaddy is a big one. Network Solutions is a big one. But again, these are all things that are case by case. So that is something that you would ask your, if you're looking to bring an IT individual on as like a director of IT, or if you were looking to supplement with a company like Right Technology or have Right Technology take over your IT, that's something that we would get options for you. You should definitely have options. Do not just go with the first one that's brought to you. You would take a look at it, and whatever works best for your company is what you would implement. There's not really a one size fits all.
So you mean the days of like the paper airplane where you're delivering a message to your office mate is long gone?
Yes.
But obviously with, we have chat and we have, Teams and a lot of communication that way, and certainly different ways of communicating. But Megan, did you have another question?
Yeah, so this one's kind of, there's a couple, but one of them is, so like when I do a lot of the communications for OCPC, and things like Twitter, you have a very limited amount of characters you can use, but there's links that we want to provide.
Right.
So I usually go to a system called like Bitly to reduce that link. But I know you talk a lot about like if the link looks suspicious, it doesn't include like different things. Is there something that like people will look at and not feel like it's spam? Like how do you give them their confidence that that link looks prettier, but it's also not spam?
Well, it's sort of a catch-22 because we don't want users to be confident in links that they see ever. So it's sort of this gray area where there are a lot of companies where you use a service, it will lower the link and it will change the name of the link to whatever it is you're linking to. So maybe it's OCPC's website or a specific page on the website. And that's great. It might just see OCPC/Ryan's page. But unfortunately, hackers know that too. So they'll use a service that will disguise a URL. And if you actually hover over a URL before you click it, like a hyperlink, whether it's email, online, it will actually show you. Let me see if I can find one here, actually. It will show you, let me see. It will show you the actual URL itself without you having to click it. I may not be able to find one. That's okay. But if you hover over a hyperlink or what you're describing at any point, you'll actually receive a pop-up that shows the full website link. And if the website link goes to the website, then it's great. People are going to be pretty confident in following it. But I would say, generally speaking, I wouldn't do more than that to sort of build up confidence in people, because we always recommend that even though it's coming from someone we trust, we don't trust the thing that's coming, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too easy to fake this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so one of my other questions is more for, we're talking a lot about, having the ability to have an IT company, at our fingertips. But what if you're at home and you might have one of these issues and stuff? What do you recommend is like a best practice for, like, let's say that you think you clicked on a wonky link and stuff, but you don't think you went too far. what are tools that we can use to check our own security at home?
Yeah, I would say I don't want to speak for most IT companies, but I know for a lot of IT companies, even in the cases of it being a personal device, a lot of times we can take a look at it. We can take a look, make sure that it's okay. In the event that you don't currently have one, or you have an IT company that doesn't do that sort of service, which is probably pretty common, then what we would normally recommend is if you receive like a pop-up, that full screen thing, obviously don't call that phone number. Right away, just click that Windows link like we talked about, the Windows logo rather on your keyboard. That will exit you from full screen like we have now, and then you can get rid of it. I do recommend using, if you think your computer's been infected, a program like this. I've thrown it in the chat, and I believe we can still see my screen, but it's called Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes is pretty good if you think something's gone wrong with a personal device. You just download it. It's a free trial. After 30 days, it will ask you to buy the service. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So the Malwarebytes service is a service that will download. It's pretty up to the date. It's pretty high end. It will scan your computer for free and make sure everything's okay. Generally speaking, update your computer regularly. Most people at home don't have programs that are installed on a personal device that will be broken from Windows updates or Apple updates. If you are doing business work on a personal device, you need to add it to your IT team's portfolio of protected devices. You cannot have personal or company information on a personal device, especially if you have a nonprofit, because there's no real security. A lot of people have like a Norton at home. Norton is useless. You don't want it. Same thing for McAfee. It is useless. You do not want it. In most cases at home, all you really need is Windows Defender or Apple's default defense program. In the event that something goes really, really sideways, then, at that point you might need an IT person to look at it, but that's pretty rare. Home devices aren't the target. You're not going to get a lot of stuff off home devices. The only time you get stuff off of home devices is if people are living in both worlds, which any IT person will tell you, you really can't do. You have to have business on a business device, personal stuff on a personal device, and that's it. That's not always feasible, but like I said, if you do a lot of business stuff on your personal device, it needs to be known by your IT team so it can be properly protected with, next gen AV. A lot of times there'll be EDR or BDR programs that will check for persistency in programs. If there's someone who's trying to run something to hack your device, something like that, it needs to be protected the same as a business device in that case.
Well, we are running close to the end. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A or the chat. We certainly have your contact information, Ryan, as well as Right Technology. And I know there's a couple members of Right Technology who are on. Again, just to reinforces that this is being recorded. It will be up on our website. We'll be sharing it with all those that registered. And if there are any interest in further discussions about webinars on cybersecurity, we are very lucky to have Right Technology in our office space here, and we'd be glad to share that contact. So on behalf of
and Mary, I did just want to add, thank you. If you guys have just general questions, definitely feel free to shoot me an email, shoot me a text, give me a call. My wife just actually had a baby, so I'm home right now. It may take me a little while to get back to you. But if you have general questions, just want to bounce some ideas. Hey, this is how we're set up. You think it's okay? That sort of stuff. We definitely can answer those questions for you. Howard, which I've included his cell phone number in here, is also a fantastic resource. He's the CEO of our company, Howard Wright. He's pretty much always available, as Mary can attest to. He's up at 4:15 a.m. and working until God knows when at night. So between either him or I, or I may include Alexandra's information in here as well. But someone should be available to take any questions, field any phone calls, text messages, anything like that.
So how appropriate is, an email came in and it talks about modification and came from one of my employees, and it's not him.
Perfect timing.
We're landing on an email coming in that's a spam, and I know enough not to click on it because Ryan and Right Technology, thank you for being a wonderful partner to us, and for today's, for your experience and the presentation for today. And we will, if okay with you, we'll share the slides along with the webinar.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And thank you to all the attendees for being here, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our next upcoming webinars. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.